That's right, everybody. My goodness, it's Friday. Hey, guys, what's going on? And what better way to wrap up or begin one's Friday evening with a talk about a little bit of science? What's going on at the fringes? What are these cracks? Cranks! And I claim sufficiently crazy ideas. At least that's what I'm reading from the title that I gave this stream. And I don't know. I don't know. I always hear the thing that science is a very social activity. I totally believe that as somebody that socializes with a lot of different folks from all across the spectrum, folks that are published, folks that run experiments, folks that have, I don't know, tech companies, as well as other. Now I introduce myself as a crazy person right off the bat and say, I'm going to put that out there. I'm not going to pretend I'm a quantum mechanic or a mathematician. People will say those words and stuff, and it's like, don't get me wrong. I love it when people say nice words about me. It helps stoke my ego and everything. Total narcissist. But one has to, let's just say, be a little wary at times. One of the reasons why I have Fizz say, though know I should be wary. Still, I venture some. It's the whole Beetlejuice thing. Don't say it three times. Three. Yeah, I swear I can count at least up to 4, maybe 5 if I'm lucky. But, I don't know. I just get exposed to a whole bunch of different stuff, whether it's the dino and animal drama, whether it's science or okay, I think if there's one constant in humanity, it's I think human beings love drama. Again, I've said this before, we'll say it again. Rule 14 of the internet. Everyone loves a good dumpster fire, preferably if it's not their dumpster. It's just something that catches our attention. It's just something that's so okay. Now, this reaches the converging of, in my opinion, um, just certain human characteristics. Because we all know nobody would ever express their opinion as fact on the internet. I mean, that would be wrong. That would be dishonest. Okay, maybe you believe it's true. Okay, if you honestly believe it's true, that's fine. My basic solution to it is okay, monetize news, monetize opinion, as long as they're appropriately labeled. I think that solves a lot of problems. What? Why? Be, why would people do crazy things on the internet? It's like, well, I love attention. I'm sure nobody else would do that because I'm a terrible person. And you just say something, whether or not it's true, and you get attention. It's the ability to monetize attention. That whole quote unquote clickbait thing. And you can do that. Maybe you truly believe it. Could be wrong. But I feel like many times people, if you press them on something, well, that's what I believe. That's fine. That's totally fine. You're entitled to your own opinion. Now, my personal take to solve a lot of this is just simply label opinion opinion. Again, it's I go back to when I was in my quote unquote political side of things. And I remember when Tim Pool was on the Joe Rogan experience and he pointed out Newsweek. When I grew up, Newsweek was a highly reputable source. You could use that for your projects at school. And he, to his credit, pointed out that Newsweek labeled an opinion piece. Excuse me, they had an opinion piece and it was not labeled opinion. Kudos to Tim Pool for that. Fast forward about a year or so, with the pandemic and stuff is happening, and he goes from the inquisitive journalist to a news host at that point. And I asked him directly, I'm like, Tim Pool, will you lead the charge to label your opinion pieces on YouTube? Opinion. The response, well, people know it's my opinion. I go back to the Tommy Boy movie for the whole whoever the large brake pad operator that was trying to buy out the family company was. And it's like, it's not on the box. Guarantee should be on the box. And that's around the point where I'm like, well, people don't really care. They're just going to argue over whatever they generally support. And fair, fair. That's fine. I just I feel it would solve a lot of problems. It's like, rather than saying this is the thing, you can say that is the thing. But if it's an opinion, it's not labeled as such. Let the platform keep all the money. Now, if you label it opinion, yeah, you can have whatever crazy idea you want, and you can still make money. Again, we're not stopping you from making money. We're just monetize news, monetize opinion, and simply make sure they're properly labeled. I'm sure nobody would have a problem with that. I say this because I was totally guilty of rather than having a conversation with somebody, let me just send them a video that randomly agrees. The title agrees with my premise, whether I actually listen to it or not. It was at that point I realized I'm like, okay, let me go to science. And then you run into the same drama, just kind of seems to permeate as well. But that's welcome, crypto. Good to see you. It's hey, I'll take all the promotion I can get. Thank you. Yes. Make photons great again. Or wavicles again, or whatever they may or may not be according to some intensity, wavelength, packet acceptance, or whatnot. What is light? I cannot say it. It was a thing that seemed to be bright when I used to have that little light break thing where it was amazing technology. What do you have? You have some lights behind a screen. Here's a black piece of construction paper. You just plug it in like Battleship. And then it would get all colorful and everything. That was how I knew light was pretty cool. It's oh god. Here's the thing. I hate doing that. I I understand people forget about stuff, and a lot of times that's why you'll have the different YouTubers doing the whole like, comment, subscribe, like, comment, subscribe. Feel like I need to put that to some marching fascist music from World War II or something like that. And it was also all I got that Steven Seagal to never say that phrase. Apparently, I terrified him because he thought I was gonna do that to him. Um, I just got bored of the political stuff for a while. Maybe I'll make another channel on that. We'll do like Culture War Z or something like that, and just everything. Insert commentator here is right. We need to obviously legalize dueling. And just a 1 minute short of just everything. Doesn't matter the topic. It's like, yes, outrage, legalize dueling. Just yeah, man, it just got the foreplay. Just go right to it. It's people are talking about all this conflict and everything. And it's like, okay. When I get hey, I had this conversation in the comment section of what was it? And again, for the deep lore of those of you that actually want to know the precipice to what got me to do this, I know Jax will probably usually ask is it the bad boy of science, Doctor Dr. Sam Gregson. Uh, he had worked for CERN, or at least the CMS experiment at CERN. Uh, the compact muon solenoid and stuff. Long story short, is it's kind of like a mini like Higgs boson factory and stuff. He had on Professor Dave. Professor Dave explains because he knows a lot about his science stuff. Professor Dave explains. Even though, listen, he may not be an actual professor, but at least he does have like the degree and stuff in this. But they were talking about okay, there's a lot of misinformation, whatever that may or may not be about some things. And they were talking about, yeah, basically, for those of you not aware, Professor Dave, he does put out like a lot of the standard content about whatever chemistry, biology, this, that. From what I can see, appears to be highly accurate. Appears to agree with a lot of the general stuff that we know and everything, and seems like high quality content. Um, but he also does a lot of quote unquote takedown videos as well. And to his own admission, he even says like, "Oh, this past January, listen, I'm a YouTuber. I realized the numbers were kind of down. It's like, well, I need to stop this actual educational video and do like 3 takedown videos because, well, it gets a lot more traction and stuff." Now, the other content that's just educational content, it's like that's always going to be around. Like, was it? I talked to somebody a few years ago, and he has a video about changing an alternator in like a 1988 Chevy Blazer, and it's like, well, anybody that's interested in changing the alternator on an '88 Chevy Blazer. That's probably one of the first things that's going to go up there. So it's the content that will last the test of time, so to speak, as long as humans are working on older automobiles like that. Heck, I learned how to change a urinal on YouTube. It's heck, I work with two much more experienced maintenance guys at one point, and it's like between the three of us, none of us had ever changed a urinal. It's like, well, how do we do this? Go on to YouTube. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, the bolts are down beneath. Okay, you take the caps off, you unscrew it there, and it's actually hanging. Listen, I found it incredibly useful. Now, not everybody's going to need to do that, but it's one of those things where now we have higher fidelity material rather than there's an instruction manual. Undo these things in this diagram that you can't make out. It's like, I don't know what that is, but it's like, there's a urinal. Okay. Personally, I peed in a lot of them. You know, like look underneath. Okay, might be kind of grimy. Maybe be prime with some gloves and stuff. Take some caps off. Boom. Unscrew it. Boom. Boom. Okay, there you go. And you can replace your urinal. Make always sure all your seals and are tight. Everything. Your wax ring is attached, so you're not going to have leakage. Because God, nobody wants leakage. That's one of those things. We now have the ability to actually like try to figure out what's better going on. Now, with science and stuff, I mean, you can conjecture whatever you want. I mean, heck, let's just do this just for those friends out there. Oh, you're so sweet. It warms my little black heart. But Poindexter, I'm also I tend to agree. The correct question may actually be the answer. I'm gonna run the disclaimer now. Here we go. Professor Wolfram. We're going to conjecture.
Although this is going to be weird, and it's going to be about a different.
Title of the conference was something like "Ground Truth" or "Turtles All the Way Down," and so it seems as though there's one Ruliad. I don't think it rules them all, and it might be just hyper-rulial turtles all the way down.
Yes, it's on the back of an infinite number of hyper-rulial turtles.
Various people are commenting on the outrage of hacking the universe on a MacBook Air.
Full disclosure, this is a MacBook Pro. We want to be open and transparent as much as we can, right? Yes. Feed my ego more. Lego my ego more. Yeah, yes, Junior Dolphin Defense Force. So I feel like, is that Des? I always get so confused when people change their names. Very often I just associate pictures and stuff, unless it's something very distinctive, because I'm sure I confused Stephen Wolfram when I arbitrarily changed from like a dragon to some apex masculine figure I could never actually match. Thanks, Jitsi Lemons. Yes, David Splayed, the Dave Explains. But basically his technique is he does just a lot of the standard this is a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad person. It makes me sad. Occasionally he's done stuff about different books that I know, and actually I think some folks that I actually may or may not still support. Actually, I can almost guarantee that things about some folks I still support probably. And I'll see things there and I'm like, okay, well, I haven't seen that information before, but just me personally, it's like I hung around a lot of folks that actually had very diametrically opposed views on things to Professor Dave. And as I saw as they garnered attention, became more and more established and quote unquote relevant, by just going down the bad people are bad, blah, 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 nice things about the people we like, blah, blah. And just that model is ingrained in me now, and I try to get away from it. So when I see somebody like him, I'm not going to say it's not effective. It's totally effective. Why do people do negative politics? Because it works. I don't have to say that that's a good answer, but it just is an answer. And personally, I love drama. I try to at least within this form abide by the rules on the internet. Now, I'm not saying that I may or may not have a suitable account engaging in animal drama, but nobody would ever do that. I mean, who would care about something like that? Oh, I do love me some honey. I digress. Yes, yes. Professor Dave is not a professor. Listen, nobody would ever pretend on the internet. I mean, I say this as a scaly, so I mean, again, I can't really speak on that. So uh, now again, the thing is, even if somebody does that, my thing is, I tend to judge somebody by kind of the boundaries of something. And again, people are allowed to have crazy ideas or ideas I don't agree with and stuff. It's just that if you're going to be very confident about one particular thing, and that one particular thing really happens to fit a particular, let's say, worldview or perspective or something. I won't go into particularly what that is with Professor Dave, but some of those things make me roll my eyes. And it's sad because I might agree with somebody up to so many different points, but it's like, eh, if you're so confident about that, maybe. I don't know. Hey, listen, ain't nothing wrong with some Linux. Pretty sure Mac is running. Mac runs on Linux and everything, to my knowledge. Uh, uh, oh, Jax, yes, I'm just going into my rant about current science and stuff. And how do you tell the difference? Listen, I don't know. Now, again, okay, I got that right. All right, thank you, Des. Or listen, I'm all for the Junior Dolphin Defense Force. Don't harm children. And Echo the Dolphin was a good game. I got stuck at the whale. I'm not gonna lie. I got stuck at the whale, and I could not progress further. Uh, yeah. Hey, who doesn't love some memes? The username was available, so it's amazing what might be available at times on the internet. Well, that's the thing. It's okay to have crazy ideas, but also, from what I can understand, crypto, it's like you're also working kind of like in an experimental field. Like you're doing coils, you're doing all this different stuff. So ultimately, when the quote unquote rubber meets the road, so to speak, it's like if you can build something and it does what the claim says, hard to argue with that. That's a pretty firm establishment in science if you can build something useful. Now, I love conjecturing wildly and stuff, but that's also one of the reasons why I say, okay, we're going to conjecture ahead. I'm not saying it's the truth. I'm happy to entertain speculative ideas. I've had different folks on that, different levels of quote unquote established science. I mean, Jonathan Garage, probably one of the more practical scientists. He had worked on the Wolfram Physics Project. He had been on. I've had Stephen Wolfram on. Uh, Professor Wolfram happens to be an individual, and he admits it. He's like, well, I happen to be perhaps an eccentric CEO with some resources, so I can kind of do what I want. And it's like, listen, you don't have to agree with him, but he's at least earned enough quote unquote traditional street cred that he can do what he wants and stuff, whether it's right or wrong. I mean, he goes down a particular way that he thinks, and he did also do that piece. I think we covered it here. We did the reading of it about if you have an idea. A lot of times, people want affirmation. People want to know, like, is this something worth pursuing? Should I continue with this idea? And a lot of times, we go out to different other smart people that we've very often rude on videos and stuff like that to try to get some attention and be like, hi, we have this new idea. I think Dr. Alexander Unziker actually had one of the things for, I think it was an entry into, I think it was the Pace One contest Kurt Mungle had a little while back, where he had a little animation and it was dubbed over and it's talking about how when folks would have a new theory and they would approach Professor Dirac and be like, Professor Dirac, Professor Dirac, we have a new theory. And he would turn and say, does explain the fine structure constant. Then people would just go, well, they're just moping, just gonna go away. So again, I am very biased. It's just, again, I see that and I'm like, well, at least the physics monastery, if you accept the premise that it has laid out, I'm like, he at least has an explanation for it. You don't have to agree with it. Again, it does kind of infer there might be a quote unquote preferential unit basis, but there's certain interesting things. And again, I think a lot of it comes down to, or at least some of the crazy calculations I have. It's like, why the heck if I just install just a base unit, a unit that we've set as human beings, can I seem to quickly calculate simply what seems to be prevailing certain quote unquote constants, whether or not they're constant and stuff. I think most of that was just because if you do the quote unquote spherical God cow or whatever view of the Higgs boson in a spherically idealized form, you end up getting a length scale right about 1 meter. I think that's why. I think that's why. Just because it's like the meter itself originally, it's like, oh, of course, it's just 10,000 miles from the North Pole to the equator by route of the Paris Observatory, of course. Um, it's a very arbitrary thing. I don't know how you get much more arbitrary than that. Um, but it's interesting that it kind of lines up with some other things. And then you could say that, well, it actually was based upon the constant of nature that happens to be like water, or the density of water at just under 4 degrees Celsius at standard atmospheric pressure. Uh, it's right about 1 cubic centimeter per gram, or 1 gram per cubic centimeter. Very close, goes to about the third decimal place. And as far as I know, that reference density was actually used, I think it was Cavendish, when they were actually trying to measure the Earth's gravity in the Cavendish experiments. Where they, again, have that giant pendulum when they're trying to do that thing, just because he needed a mass and everything. And if you're using water and you just assume it's 1 gram per cubic centimeter, that means it's 1,000 kilograms per cubic meter. I, I listen. I'm mostly saying this because one, it's history. Excuse me. Number two, it's history. Number one, I'm very biased because it helps some of my personal conjectures hold water, so to speak. Um, I mean, that's an absolutely insane thing. You get into the whole chicken and egg thing. It's like, well, why? Why? I can't say as of yet. Again, and then you can say, well, if you divide 7 molecules into the maximum number of distinct tessellations for the atomic elements, all you sum all 118 elements up, and they divide by 7 molecules of water, you're like, oh, it's 137. It's a rounding error. You get a little bit more detailed and holds for almost another 2 digits, and you're like, that seems to be the length of our knowledge of this topic, and it eerily, if you look at the bounds, it seems to be right. I don't know. Again, coincidence, but how many coinkydinks make a heap? Okay, just looking for evidence to confirm my own bias. But then again, it's like, okay, that's cool, but let's go a little beyond there. Let's see what's actually going on. Okay. So I think one of the things we run into is when you have science, you have quote unquote, I hate the term establishment or mainstream because it just turns us into another us versus them thing. And a lot of times, from our personal perspective, and I'm saying this as I'm outside and occasionally interacting observer with different folks in the greater science communities and hopping on. I know I've been on with, I think, Crypto and Dr. Salvatore Pius, and some folks will say, "Oh, Dr. Salvatore Pius is kind of odd." I mean, he pointed out some interesting things. I feel like he said the right words and everything. Just low key, I'm like, well, he does work for the Space Force, and it's like he doesn't really. Oh, just okay. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe some folks are out there trying to give us clues. Maybe it's all just a big sign. Listen, whatever it is, just quote unquote follow the science. Okay, now we've heard that term before, but again, I'm going to harken back. I'm going to make an appeal to authority here. And while you don't need to necessarily go to this extreme, but the Professor Feynman's thing is you can't explain it to your grandmother, your fifth grader, or whatever thing is there. Do you understand? Now you can caveat that and be like, listen, there's complicated stuff going on. That's the thing. That's one of the reasons why it's like I do the nitwit meme. It's what is that? It's like you have the simple answer, you have what a lot of people say, And then you go to the other end of the spectrum, and it seems to almost come around because it's like, what is it? Oh God, Dr. Verisetti, Carla, like Dr. Cesarati. Dr. Cesarati was on the Landscape podcast, and she actually brought this up at one point. She's like, "Leave the nitwit me. What was it? They're trying to do an underground detector and everything, and like your first thought is a sense of detector underground. It's like, doesn't the ground shake?" And then it's like the midpoint of the meme is like, they're scientists, they're professionals, blah blah blah. You go on to this thing, and then you go to the other, and it's like, yeah, doesn't the ground shake? It, yeah, it's again, it's like I'm happy, but it's you need to be able to caveat yourself. Like this is one of the reasons why I happen to enjoy a lot of Professor Carroll's content because he'll be like, yeah, it's almost certain that gravitons exist, but it's like we haven't detected them. They're still theoretical, but he's like, my personal belief is, yeah, I put money, yeah, gravitons are a thing. So I'm plenty of folks within string theory would agree, and it's like, oh, string theory. It's like, you, again, my personal experience is you'll see a lot of videos. It's like, well, string theory is doing this, blah 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 blah. It's like, okay, is there maybe some underlying reason? All of when I went to go out and party with some physics grad students in Utah, I spoke with actually somebody that had their postdoc, and he was a theoretical physicist. He was going into that. And I'm like, hey, what are you looking at going into? And he said string theory. I'm like, what made you choose that? He's like, it's fascinating. That's a very honest answer. Like the first time I do like the string tension equation, you just throw in blank. Here's what you get out. You get the speed of light. It's like that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. And especially if your quote unquote base model, like literally you get gravity for free, or what is believed to be the carrier of the gravitational force, if it just pops out, it's like, seems like an area worthy of study. Now, again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it's a particular perspective. And again, you do 2 pi Planck length, and you get up the string length of M theory. Why? Because it's assuming a minimum length. And then if you're going to have like some sinusoidal wave or a circle stuff, yeah, it's 2 pi. That's your minimum R, your radius. You're going to have to at least have a circle. Okay, maybe it is a little one-dimensional string to an observer like us. And again, a lot of that is probably because if you have a lot of mathematics and we have very powerful, very beautiful mathematics, it's the one thing you can't say about string theory is it's not precise. That's I mean that different people would disagree on maybe our extent. It's like, okay, well, maybe that made sense for bosonic string theory, and then we started to try to add some other things there. It's like, all right, a string, a little orb, some random topological Kleinian structure going through a very particular articulation. Whatever's going on, it's like, okay, that's cool. I would like to learn more, and as we get better precision, we should be able to figure out what's better going on. And that's one of the things that we kind of run into is just because if you look at like the history of physics, well, oh, we haven't made improvements and the foundations of physics are notably agreed upon improvements or progress in like 50 years. It's like, well, if you look at the history, turn of the century, it's like, okay, we get in all these weird experiments. We're getting to the 7th significant digit or so, and things are really seeming to get wonky. Our classical things seem to be breaking down. What seems to be going on? What is this discrepancy once we hit a particular precision? It's like, okay, something decoherence helps lead up to whatever we are. That's my general takeaway. Again, not a quantum mechanic, but you see what's going on, and it's like, okay, so you'll have generally accepted things. And it's like, okay, again, it's you look at the percentage of folks for people talking all about string theory. It's like, well yeah, because people are still studying it because you get like what 10 to the 500 potential Calabi-Yau manifolds. You can study it for a long time. Uh, maybe they'll find maybe they already found the correct labial and it's already been done, and maybe all this technology already exists. Maybe that's the case. Maybe we're barking up the wrong tree. Now, I have my own personal preferences for what might be going on. Do I know what's going on? No. Almost every time I start any broadcast or pop in any chat, one of the first things like, guys, what's going on? I don't know. Let's see. See what else we got here. Uh oh, spooky action at a I looked for that. I looked for that. Boy, Dexter, here's the thing. We say spooky action at a difference and at a distance, and it's like I guess I'm still not smart enough. It's like, all right, measure this thing. We see this. We know that there's a correlation with that other thing. Will be the opposite. I'm like, okay, if if I have a left sock and a right sock, I'm not saying I can tell sock handedness apart or footedness in this point, but I have two socks. If I got my right sock and the other sock is over there, okay, it's the left sock. Again, I'm sure I'm missing things, but it's like I'll listen and then I'll just come back to that. I'm like, okay, correlation from a distance. From a distance. Um, I, allegedly, they've measured the speed of quantum entanglement, and apparently, this appears to be a thing. It's like, is it 2.34 times 10 to the minus 18 or something like that seconds? It's a quantifiable thing. It's maybe there's an interesting thing happening over there. Well, I guess 42. Well, 42 might explain a lot, but I would claim 44 might explain more. Again, personal preference, personal heresy on my part. Yeah. All right. We'll see that. That's the thing, crypto. It's like if you can build, and that's ultimately Stephen Wolfram's general perspective. And again, you'd have to ask him personally, but it's like, okay, you can build computational tools that will do things. And ultimately, whatever he's building, when you actually have the founder working on these actual sessions and stuff, well, what happens? Well, now you're going to have somebody working directly for it that if nobody else uses it, it will always have at least a user base of one himself. I mean, it's hard to argue with that. It's like you might not like the function. Maybe you prefer Python. That's totally fine. Python or whatever language you like to work with there. It's if you can build something and it works, again, it's hard to argue. That's one of the big things with like a lot of this quote unquote new AI and everything. And a lot of this is taking what humanity already has and focusing on asking very precise questions or tasking it with something that at least with the quote unquote AI breakthroughs, as much as I can see, it's like much of this is human guided. A lot of it was human intuition, and now it's leveraging the pattern matching and brute force compute of a lot of these AI agents out there. So like the whole like was it glue on proof for whatever it is, where it's like, oh, we didn't think this was necessarily a thing. We might not have enough energy. Apparently, folks had their suspicions. They generally kind of believed it was true, but they couldn't quote unquote prove it to a acceptable level within peers of the field. And apparently, one of the no chat pro models, where I think they actually had access to a slightly more powerful, yet to be released version, helped them to provide the proof. And the thing that gets me is people have very strong perspectives on this. It's like it's nothing. It's confirming what scientists already knew. It's like, oh, why didn't scientists kind of already do that before? Or it's like it totally solved it. It's like did it not? It's almost like we have new tools like computers that we can like do word processing and video editing and oh, dare I say, quote unquote, remote viewing from all over the world. People can be watching this at not near the speed of light from or at least to an observer like us from, I don't know, Canada, the US, Australia, the UK, even France. Listen, personally, I don't think anybody knows what goes on in France except the actual folks that live there. I don't speak French. My apologies to the French. But uh, let's see. Well, it's an interesting thing. It seems like most water is pretty salty, and to be fair, okay, it just because I'm a crazy person again, it's listen, crack, crank, all the above. That's my usual answer. Uh, Option D, all of the above. Yes. Um, if most water is salty, but then again, if you were at a freshwater lake, and again, at 1.5 bars, at just below 4 degrees, you do hit like precisely to, and then it actually can go up. Or if you consider that most water was not at the surface and go just a little bit down, there's a gradient there where it is precisely what. Now, listen, our use of one atmosphere is like what's like 100,000 pascals or something like that in SI units there. Why would we give Earth preference? What if it was a super Earth or something? So it's like, it's a very interesting thing that it has a very small range until it either magically starts to get bigger, which not many things do. And then again, I digress. And again, I would say that, is that a sufficiently crazy idea? You would need to have, I would say, great. You need more evidence than just, I want it to be so. Because now I'm just giving my opinion. Now, the opinion might be right. That's the thing. Because you might have folks out there and they can give their opinion. And maybe some opinions, what was thought to be quote unquote crazy, or oh, they're just a crackpot or something like that. Some of these things, if you play it out, okay, maybe there is some there. The problem is when we go to that there, how much there are we claiming is there? That was a lot of theirs and literal like finger waving right there. But the thing is, if you say, okay, the one thing that I've learned from sales is you say something confidently with a lot of charisma, you can say just about whatever the heck it is, and as long as you're confident about it, you're saying it passionately, some folks will just agree with you. I've done sales. It's like literally, there's no reason for this person to, they're buying into you. That's the thing. They need to buy into the person first, and then they'll buy into the idea. Now, again, not all. There's some people that are very straight up, it must logically be this, this, and this. I know if Captain Infinity watches this, he's part of the time police. So if anybody brings up anything about quote unquote time travel that he does not approve of, he will be quite vicious. It's almost like a honey badger with time travel, but I digress. Yes, open brackets are minds. It's, oh God, I feel like that's going to be the syntax we're going to have to use. Yeah. It's, listen, as long as my head is still attached, I think that's usually a good day. Jax is commenting, well, looking for God's music. Maybe that's the proper question. Can't say. But okay. Enough people are talking about Stargate now. I'm gonna have to watch it. Okay, I watched it back in the day. Well, I forget what was on TBS or something. I just remember, I feel like it conflicted with professional wrestling, which was more of my jam back then. I did watch some episodes of Stargate. From what I remember, it was a good show. I do think now that I can just binge a lot of these things, I probably should go back. I need to watch that in Battlestar Galactica. Okay. Well, that's the thing, Crypto. It's like, we also have to be careful, just because if I like something and it's like somebody's saying something and I agree with it, and if everybody else in the room is agreeing with it, I sometimes need to just take a step back and be like, okay, Why am I agreeing with this? I'm agreeing with it because I want it to be true. That's fine. Now, I need to peel back the layers. Okay, aside from it being true, what is the evidence we have? Now, might be circumstantial evidence. It might be really hard evidence, but ultimately, at least what I've learned from Thad, the whole concept is we got measurements. These measurements have taken God knows how many like years, millennia, like billions, trillions of dollars, and just like lifetimes of humans being involved. Like however many millions or billions of like human lived hours towards an experiment. People that you spend their whole lives doing something, whether it's Madame Moo on Christmas, whether it's I don't know, the folks at the LHC and stuff like that. It's like, okay, we have some measurements. You can dispute them. You can dispute them. That's why we want to have verification from other different experiments and everything. So there is a process. Now, what we infer from the process, that can be very different. And I've heard different folks from have all different ideas all along the spectrum. And I think one of the things that happens is, I think right now, given how interconnected we are, it's at least to me surprisingly, and again, maybe I'm just kind of a milk toast individual, a little twist of lemon here, but I tend to agree with most general science as we kind of know it. And again, maybe there's some caveats there, but I've run across a number of folks that, to me, I'm surprised that they don't believe in a lot of quote unquote generally accepted science. And like these are just pretty just normal people and stuff like that I'm like, I've have conversations, they seem pretty reasonable things, they'll object to other things. It's like, I don't think we've actually been to space. Or it's like, oh well, this is this. I'm like, really? What makes you say that? And I'll listen, and it's like, okay, I might not agree. Again, you're entitled to your own opinion, but I'm like, okay, I entertain. What would need to be done for this to be true? Now, I'll be straight up. That whole we seem to have pretty good footage of Neil Armstrong on the moon doing some things. I'm like, okay, where was that? Okay, we have a satellite. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I think it was Martin Bauer. I think he runs one of the math and science channels here on YouTube, or maybe Jacob Gibson or something like that. They actually had the most convincing, like, literal meme about like us going to the moon. It's like, if we didn't go to the moon, the Russians would call us out. It's like, yeah. Because ultimately, it's like you might not believe in the science or something like that, but human nature, some of that seems to be a constant, in my opinion. If I looked into Bell's theorem regarding entanglement, okay, something about should be the square root of 2 pi. We looked into it a little bit there. Again, I'm going to make an appeal to authority. To my knowledge, according to Tim Maudlin, who was at least trying to get the Bell Institute started, he's like, Bell's theorem, like if Bell's theorem does not hold, basically just quantum mechanics is incomplete. Now, does quantum mechanics necessarily explain everything? No, but it seems to work really dang well, and we seem to be able to calculate a lot of stuff that seems to be verified by experiments. So you can propose something, an alternative to quantum mechanics, but you need to still be able to explain what has been explained, preferably more with less. Because you can have a great idea, fantastic idea. And this is where I think, let's touch upon the quote unquote cracks and cranks and stuff for crazy people on the internet. It's like, okay, you might have an idea. It solves this very particular problem. That's fantastic. The issue you run into is computational irreducibility. So if you change one thing in the standard model, and again, the standard model is not the final say. We know that. But if you're going to change something about the standard model, what are going to be the repercussions? Now, if you change something for the better, what you would expect to see is things simplify. And then we should be able to continue to explain more with less, utilizing whatever has been postulated. Okay. You propose this idea. Does it simplify things in the standard model? And can we continue to do what we do? Okay. I think what often happens is you might postulate a quote unquote crazy idea. The crazy idea solves one thing. And then you go to plug it in and you realize, well, I got like a D-sized battery, but this is a 9-volt hookup here. You try to show, okay, we need to modify. Okay, now we need to adjust this. So now you're doing a modification. So now you're adding epicycle on. Okay, now we got to defend that. Okay, that's fine. But ultimately, if you iterate it through the entire system, are you making things better or worse? Part of the reason why I know I can say that is because I have a meme to back that up.
I put the fires out. You made them worse. Worse? Or better?
Again, that's an opinion. I can't say if it's worse or better from my limited review of Invader Zim. I think a lot of people thought they were worse. Sorry, brother. It's... Yeah, wormhole for another day that may or may not have been to our interpretation. There's a lot of stuff going on. Zeros don't count in most worlds. Oh God. Well, that's a good thing that we have the Everett interpretation. There may be many worlds, because in some worlds, I'm sure is it zeros all the way down? Maybe. It's okay. The thing that weirds me out about many worlds is that's what I told myself when I was 10 years old. Whenever things didn't go where I wanted, I'm like, well, there's some universe where I did the right thing, and I actually took advantage of the situation, and wasn't some bum that just missed out on something. So I'm like, that was a little lie that I told to myself to help make myself feel better. And I'm like, all right, it's an interpretation of quantum mechanics. Okay, what's a measurement? Who knows? I'm sorry. Listen. I can understand why Professor Carroll likes every interpretation. He's like, okay, you might have a particular interpretation of this. You might not like it, but he's like, what are we doing? Just believe the Schrodinger equation. No epicycles. The consequences might be really weird, but he's like, no additional epicycles. You're just saying that there's a whole bunch of worlds and stuff, which again kind of confuses me, but I'm like, maybe it's everything everywhere all at once. Block universe is just we're just light of some holographic, twisty, whatever prism of stuff. And we are simply the resonant beings of this particular ray of light or something like that. And everything else is fractally going all. Listen, that would be very beautiful. They've done some movies about that. I think at least one movie. Everything everywhere all at once. Again, I still need to watch that. I got a little confused because I'm like, something about a bagel, and I'm like, okay, now it is actually, but apparently it actually goes into some interesting stuff. The amount of science intuition may or may not vary, but for me, people can have crazy ideas. It's like you get all these different ideas. It's just be honest about it. It's like if you say, I'm taking the perspective. One of the things that I learned from watching a lot of the Wolfram physics streams is you would have either Jonathan Garrod or Stephen Wolfram, when they were kind of just working through things, is you'd hear him say is, the claim is, okay, so the claim is this, rather than saying, this must be this way, or this is true. If you say, I conjecture, or I claim, this is the thing, this is the mechanism for how it's worked, you're covering your butt right there. You're saying this is a claim. Now, from a sales perspective, if you just want people to just believe whatever you're saying, all you do is one, you're consistent, unlike me. Two, you make yourself look professional. Maybe you're not wearing a bandana and a bright yellow level up shirt. Maybe you put on a very nice shirt. You throw on the suit jacket, and you may even add in a tie for professional decorum there. And then you use the fancy words and terminology that people may or may not understand, and even you yourself may not understand, but it sounds good. And you paint a very lovely picture about notes in a symphony, about vibrating strings, or the gravity of the world just being a simple reflection of humanity itself. We use the word gravitas. As long as you say that with confidence and conviction, and it's the right words to the right audience and stuff, people like hearing nice words. I love hearing nice words about myself. So if you hit the particular, they call them hot buttons in sales and stuff like that. And especially if you occasionally make a minor political thing, you just insert random terminology that's going to either be provocative or someone's like, yes, I agree with that person on that point. It works. And then you can just, anyone that disagrees with you, look at what they are saying. Just, if you take anything away from this, just note when you see the term they. Who is they? Everyone who's not us, of course, because we're the good people. God, it's those people over there. Those are the bad people. Now, again, from my microcosm on the internet, I've heard a lot of folks say how bad certain people are. And I occasionally am like, wow, that's terrible. And then I'll go and I'll hang out with some of those bad people. Are there some total a-holes? Absolutely. Absolutely. I learned from my friend Loretta Creole, no one group or community has a monopoly on assholes. Pardon my French. Apologies to the French. But once that computes, things make a lot more sense. Because one person's a-hole may be another person's champion. It just depends upon perspective. And it's like I'll hang out there and it's like, you listen to the concerns of different folks that disagree or are diametrically or politically opposed. And it's like, there seem to be a lot of the same concerns. It's like, well, privacy. Oh, this person's going to dox me. Oh, this person does terrible things. They say horrible things, blah, blah, blah. And then you'll get to the certain folks in the community where it's just like, no, we just highlight the drama for these people and we just call them out. And occasionally it's like, well, why don't we say things about this or talk about like when our quote unquote side messes up? It's like, well, they don't do it. They don't call out their own. So why would we call out our own? And thus we find ourselves in the world in which we live. So you can just pick whatever topic you want. You'll find a bunch of folks to agree, give you a whole bunch of head pats and everything, and say, yes, you are either totally in the right or you're totally the victim and stuff like that. Therefore, all those other people are bad. And it's just interesting. And again, microcosm is dealing with folks in multiple genres, whether it's World of Warcraft, whether it's on Twitter, Discord, political disagreements, debates, different science communities. There just seems to be this human constant that seems to proliferate through all things. And again, I'm not saying I have the answer. I have proposed conjectured answers. Monetize truth, monetize opinion. That's fine. Just label them. That's all. It's not like your hot take. That's extremely savage. As soon as you go to share it with somebody else, if it says opinion on it, somebody's instant response is, well, that's an opinion. It's an honest response to an opinion. But it might not be quite as cutting as salacious thing from people we don't like. Look at those people. They're obviously terrible, bad, no good, very bad people. Again, When one needs to utilize that many adjectives and adverbs to describe something, I entertain the idea that some bias might be involved. And let's start to roll around. Okay. Entanglement was Fringe. Listen, if you believe Professor Jacob Barron does, and again, I need to dive and actually go through and like read his thing, have chat go through and actually explain it to me step by step, and let me see if I can go through and do some computations. We'll get there. But personally, my opinion is I would love for him to be right. Because number one, what's the trade-off? He's a philosopher of physics, and if you ask him, he will say that, or at least that's what he told us. He's like, listen, if this pans out, the physicist will say I'm a physicist, but he's like, I'm actually a philosopher of physics. He had made the mistake while trying to go see what the crossover was. He's like, he just didn't assume the Markov assumption. What's the Markov assumption? Basically, you can just, if you knew all the stuff and things that were going on, you should be able to calculate and predict what's going to happen via the Schrodinger equation and the laws of nature as we know. Okay. Gives rise to a lot of weird stuff like entanglement and stuff seeming to be in multiple positions at once. And at least according to what I've taken away from him, if we do not assert the Markov assumption and essentially we believe non-Markovian dynamics, aka the past mattered. Now, what we mean by the past, whatever the last indivisible stochastic event was, we need to go back to, whatever that may or may not mean. At that point, you can, according to Professor Barondus, do quantum mechanics. It may require a little bit more work because you do need more information, but all the weirdness kind of goes away. Now, maybe that's not convenient for the practicing physicist. Maybe there's a lot of mistakes there. Maybe it's just wrong. For a physics enthusiast like myself, a guy that pretends to be a science explainer on the internet, I'm like, all right, so what you're saying is the past matters and all this weird stuff goes away. That seems like a reasonable trade-off, really, at least in my opinion. So that's why I'm like, okay, it also saves me from having to like have my head explode considering all these other things. I'm like, okay, so what you're saying is our precision is based upon certain assumptions, and if we can incorporate enough information, things seem to make sense. You're running a couple conundrums there. Number one, some may say people like their quantum mechanics spooky. Maybe a little bit spicy, a little bit magical, if you would. I'm not sure it's a real scientist thing. I just heard, I think Anastasia and Shiloh say that. So whatever you want to think about that, but it's like, it's a fantastic. Oh, listen, at the University of Utah, some of these. Listen, I have this sticker from a meeting. It's literally a cute little cat in a box. It's like, am I a particle or a wave today? How could we have this swag if we didn't have all that weird stuff? The other problem you run into is there seems to have been a lot of investment in quantum computing. Hypothetically, if Professor Barondus was correct, I have no idea what happens to quantum computing. I'm just like, is it a bubble? Does it still have influence? I know, I think I saw Sebastian in the chat. I'm just like, at least from what I've been able to take away, it seems like he's been able to simulate very interesting things on a classical computer, which coincidentally, a lot of times, like you'll see, and again, maybe not all, maybe there's been changes, but a lot of times, like you'll see the headline, it's like quantum computer completes computation that would take classical computer longer than the age of the universe. It's like, all right. And like a year or so later comes by and the classical computer just does it. Maybe it's because they knew the answer and they knew how to get there, but I think there's a lot of phase transitions. Well, that's the thing, Sebastian. It's you got to live if something has never been done before, how are other people supposed to do it if they don't see an example? And maybe it's not the best example, but we can take inspiration for each other and try to figure out what's going on. That's the goal, because the difference between a crazy idea and a sufficiently crazy idea. I'll give you an example, and we can wrap with this. Sufficiently crazy idea that seemed to work. Ludwig von Boltzmann. Yes, Boltzmann, basically one of the progenitors of thermodynamics as we know it. And again, you have to go back to Clausius and Carnot and everything like that. But the proposition, it's like, well, what if there were atoms? I'm pretty sure Democritus or something, or somebody like that back in ancient Greece has said like atoma or something like that. Like there is a minimum thing. Now, perhaps that minimum might be able to get a little bit more minimum, but at least as far as the definition of can you keep cutting gold? Well, at one point you're going to get down to, at least from what we understand, it's a gold atom. You try to cut any more, ain't going to be gold no more. So there is some minimal unit, or using some of Sebastian's terminology, is perhaps there is a particular size box. Now that box doesn't need to be squarical, cubical. Maybe it's spherical. Maybe it squidgers around. Maybe it does some weird, crazy actions or motions or something. Again, I can't say. I don't exist on that scale. God, I really need to do that observatory computational notebook. Yeah. So given Wolfram was right, it's going to be interesting just because at least getting familiar with what would be happening or one would be observing on certain phenomena. And a lot of them are actually listed. So hypothetically, if you are a ginormous observer or an incredibly microscopic, nanoscopic observer, things do seem to change. Scale seems to matter. Now, we are fortunate. We live on like the scale of the Planck momentum. But going back to good old Boltzmann, it's like he started talking. Hold on, let me just find the one Boltzmann called. It's like statistical mechanics quote. Okay, I think this is okay. So okay, this is I think this might okay. There's a random quote. It sounds right. Let's bring this up here. Okay. So this is one of those things where it's like, you can't just share a quote and expect somebody to know like what book it is or something, but it's like, all right. Ludwig von Boltzmann, who spent much of his life studying statistical mechanics, died in 1906 by his own hand. Paul Ehrenfest, carrying on the work, died similarly in 1933. Now is our turn to study statistical mechanics. That's claimed to be said by David Goodstein from A to Z quotes. So take that as it would. Okay, it was such an out there idea because a lot of folks were like, some folks were like, yes, that makes a lot of sense. Other folks were like, that's absolutely crazy. No, it has to be waves, wavicles, all this stuff and everything. And maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I mean, according to Matt Strassler, he's like, listen, I don't know what's going on. It's like, we're just going to say wavicles, whatever that may or may not be, just to try to not go down that route there. But there was such heavy criticism that, unfortunately, Boltzmann ended up taking his own life, and apparently Ehrenfest as well. And then, well, actually, I think it was 1905. Oh, God, wow, that was so close, because in 1905, I think Einstein basically kind of used that whole Brownian motion thing. It's like, okay, this appears to be evidence for atoms. Unfortunately, Boltzmann ended up taking his life like within about a year or so of that. But it's one of those things, like, a lot of folks just view that as a crazy idea. And then once we get sufficiently advanced technology and analysis, you look at it from a particular perspective, you're like, oh, that explains a lot. Maybe we can explain more with less. And in some cases, hey, we're still arguing about it. Hey, Rick, yes, the path was forgotten. Well, yeah. Well, that would be an interesting for the laws of robotics. Thou shalt not make like this in the version of machine. Okay. So my bell has rung. I finished my stories. Let's see what's actually going on. So thank you all for watching. Peace out, everybody. Take care of yourselves. It's a wacky and wild world out there, but it's open for a better tomorrow.